Curtis, did you learn how to strike the bell? No. Did you want to learn how to strike the bell? Yeah. Get our bells from. Should be completing. So good morning, everyone, and or welcome from wherever you are. It might not be morning there anymore. Welcome wherever you're from, and welcome, Durgis, to our service, morning service. Are you okay? Comfortable if I take? Okay. We'll begin our service today with a moment of silent meditation, followed by the recitation of the name of the Buddha or the Onenbutsu. Sorry about that. Somebody was made a echoing sound. Okay, so we'll start off with a silent meditation, followed by recitation of the name of Buddha or the Onenbutsu. Naman loves, naman loves, naman loves, naman loves. Next, we're gonna be reading together the our pledge. Just bring it up. Our pledge, which you will see on your screen. So if we can read this together. Our pledge. Breaking out of my shell, I shall carefully share a warm smile and speak gentle words, just like the kind Buddha. Not become lost in my greed, anger, and ignorance. I shall be open-minded and act accordingly, just like the calm and peaceful Buddha. Not putting myself first, I shall share in the joy and sadness of others, just like the compassionate Buddha. Realizing the gift of life we have received, I shall live each day to its fullest, like the Buddha who continues to emancipate all. Here is somebody in the crowd. Next, we will have the sutra chanting, and we'll be chanting the Junirai together, and you'll see it on your screen there. Naman naman naman. Dervish, if you wanted to look at the text, it's on page 63 of the purple seat. Yeah. which are on the screen, or it's on page 70 of the text. The 12 adorations, Junirai translation. Before I meet a Buddha, whom Deva, heavenly beings, and men worship, I humble myself in deepest reverence. In his wondrous land of bliss, surrounded his feet by countless bodhisattvas. His golden form shines forth pure like the king of monks smooth. His practice of truth is steadfast like an elephant's pace. His eyes radiate like pure blue lotus blossoms. Thus I prostrate myself before I meet up with God. His countenance is perfectly pure and brown like the full moon. His majestic light shines like 1,000 suns and moons. His voice is like a heavenly drum, yet like a heavenly bird kukila. Thus I prostrate myself before I meet up with God. Avalokiteshvara wears upon his crown the image of Amida adorned with many precious jewels. He subdues the arrogance of demons and heretics. Thus I prostrate myself before I meet up with God. Incomparable, vast, and pure, his virtues are, clearly extending like vast open space. He acts freely, benefiting all. Thus I prostrate myself before I meet up with God. Bodhisattvas from the 10 quarters and countless Maras, demons, always venerate him. He dwells with all power for the sake of all beings. Thus I prostrate myself before I meet up with God. In the golden treasure pond, where the lotus flowers bloom, established with goodness is a wondrous throne, where reigns the Buddha like the king of the monks. Thus I prostrate myself before I meet up with God. From the 10 quarters, bodhisattvas come, revealing wondrous powers they attain the blissful state. Honoring his face, they offer eternal homage. Thus I prostrate myself before I meet up with God. All things are transient and without self, like the moon on water, lightning, shadow, or the dew. The Dharma cannot be expressed by words, the Buddha proclaimed. Thus I prostrate myself before I meet up with God. No words of evil are in his land, no fear of evildoers, no evil paths. With sincere heart, all beings worship him. Thus I prostrate myself before I meet up with God. His land of infinite expediencies is without degenerate things or wicked beings. Upon rebirth, non-retrogressive bodhi does not attain. Thus I prostrate myself before I meet up with God. Thus have I praised the virtues of Amida Buddha. Boundless are they like the water of the sea. Upon receiving these pure and good qualities, may all beings be reborn into his land. Come on, notes. Come on, notes. Good morning. We have my mother and Hiroko Kaita just walked in, so welcome and please have a seat. So once again, good morning or good afternoon or wherever you are, welcome. This morning I wanted to start off by talking about I think it was maybe Wednesday or so, maybe it was even earlier than that. But I was helping with my mother's move into Wisteria, and I was just trying to set up her TV for her when we came across 60 Minutes. Have you seen that? I think it's CBS show, 60 Minutes. And they were doing a piece on Tony Bennett. I don't know if any of you saw this. If you haven't, please, you can Google it. Tony Bennett interview, 60 Minutes. And it was a wonderful interview or piece on Tony Bennett. And what it was that Tony Bennett, he's now 95 years old, and he has been diagnosed for the past several years with Alzheimer's. And so in this interview, what they were showing was that in 2018, he and Lady Gaga did a concert together. They put out a couple of albums actually, and they had a concert, and then the pandemic hit, and they all felt it was a very sad way for Tony Bennett to leave or end his career in this pandemic. So they wanted to do one last show. And so they were showing on the 60 Minutes, the lead up to the show. I can't remember where, I think it's somewhere in New York on Broadway or someplace. Anyways, Tony Bennett's Alzheimer has progressed quite a bit to the point where he was not that not that conversational. His wife did a lot of the talking. But when it came the time to rehearse and his accompanist played the piano, the words just came out like that. And he was able to sing the songs, I guess, from rote memory. And then they showed clips of the actual concert night, and there was real, trepidation and fear as to how he would do. But as soon as the spotlight hit him, he brightened up and he became the old showman. And they showed how it was like a light bulb going off. And not only the Alzheimer, but you would never know he was 95 years old, the way he was singing. He was belting out the songs. And then they showed a few days later of him being interviewed again, and he had no memory of the concert that he had done. Okay, but anyways, if you haven't seen it or you didn't get a chance to watch it, you can Google it up. I did myself. Tony Bennett interview 60 Minutes, and come up. Okay, but the reason why I'm saying this is that I was just reading the other day this book here. I know I'm going to get flagged now that I showed the book. Anytime I show a book or something, it comes up when I put it on our website. It gets flagged for copyright infringements, but that's okay. This book here is a collection of Dharma talks by a former Kaikyoshi minister in the States. I believe his name, you read it, Sadaho Koryu. My mom will correct me afterwards anyways, but Sadaho Koryu, I think. Koryu Sadaho is Koryo Sadaho, I think. Anyways, and it's entitled Doronko no Naka no Onembutsu, which means the Nembutsu within the mud. Okay, the Nembutsu within the mud. And he talks about how we live our life, daily life, with this Onembutsu teaching, the teachings of the Buddha Dharma. And this is quite an old book. Maybe it was printed, I think, in the 1970s, okay? And he gives an example of how we're all interconnected. And his example is a very odd example. I don't think we would ever use it. Well, I would never use it, but I found it quite interesting. There's a Japanese phrase, adage, that says, when there's a typhoon, the barrel makers all profit. When there is a typhoon, the barrel makers all profit. And on one hand, when you first hear that, it makes no sense why the barrel makers would profit when there's a typhoon. And he goes on to explain that, and this adage or saying comes from many, many centuries ago. Okay, so it's not something new. And how it's explained is that when there's a typhoon, there's usually great winds. And when the great winds happen, a lot of sand and dust get blown up. And as a result of that, a lot of people end up going blind. And through that blindness, so back in the olden days in Japan, one of the occupations for people with visual disabilities was they became musicians, specifically shamisen players. Shamisen is like a Japanese version of, it almost sounds like, sort of like a banjo, you know, the Japanese instrument, stringless instrument. But, so when there's a typhoon, there's more people that become blind, and hence more people that become this shamisen player. And the shamisen traditionally was made out of cat skin. So because of that, there are more shamisen that are sold. And because of that, there are more cats that are killed to make these shamisen instruments. And because the more cats are killed, that means that the mice reproduce. And so you get an overpopulation of mice. And it's the mice who chew the bottom of the barrels. And therefore, when there's a typhoon, the barrel makers profit. Okay, this is a very strange analogy, but what the Sadaho sensei was mentioning was how things that seem completely unrelated are interconnected. Okay, more modernly, some of you have probably heard. You can see this on the internet too. This thing called the 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon is an American actor, but this theory is that if you look at yourself, you can go 6 degrees or 6 relations, I guess, away, and somehow you can connect yourself to Kevin Bacon. Okay, this is a very popular modern, I guess, I don't know what you even call it, pop culture, I guess, analogy of how things are interconnected, right? So you can look that up too. It's 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. Of all the strange things, okay? But again, here is showing how things that seem completely unrelated can be interconnected. And there is a very famous Buddhist analogy that's used to show this, is that there's a story of a king who had his royal advisors, but there were 6 royal advisors who were all hard of sight, or they were blind. Right? And the king asked these royal advisors to describe what an elephant was, right? And so the first one went up and touched the trunk of the elephant and said, well, the elephant is a long and skinny animal that sort of like a very, very fat snake. Right? And another of the advisors went up and touched the ear of the elephant. And they said, oh, the elephant is a very flat and floppy creature, almost like the non-bred. Okay? And then another one went up and touched the leg of the elephant and said, oh, the elephant is like the trunk of a tree, very thick and sturdy. Yet another one went up and touched the tail of the elephant and said, oh, the elephant it's like a broom. Said it's got a hard handle, and then at the end, there's this brushy part. And then another one touched the belly of the elephant and said, oh, the elephant is full of wrinkles and fat. Right? So they all gave different descriptions. And what it was saying was that all of them were talking about the elephant from different perspectives, but they weren't seeing the whole picture. And here is where I come back to the interconnectedness. When I saw this story of Tony Bennett, it reminded, and they actually mentioned it on this interview, is that when he started singing, he sort of changed his personality, came alive again. And realizing that when we see individuals But when we see different incidents or different things, we only see portions of the whole. But when Tony Bennett got up to sing, his doctor said, singing brings in the whole, encapsulates the whole brain. And that says that the dancing part talks about the balance part of the brain. And the singing is the vocal part of the brain. But you have also the sight and the hearing, and it involves all these different functions. And so when I think about this, how we're all interconnected, when we only see one aspect or one snapshot of an individual, we only see certain portions, but there's so much more to what exists. And that goes for us in our daily lives. When we only see certain portions of things, we can only understand a certain percentage. And the Buddha's teaching, or the Dharma, is telling us that we are all actually, there is a much greater view of things, and that we're all interconnected. So this is my version of, I guess, 6 degrees of separation of Tony Bennett and the Buddha Dharma, and how he showed us the interconnectedness of things that can be. And so I hope, again, please do go and see that. It's a wonderful, wonderful interview. And as we enjoy the Thanksgiving weekend, I hope you'll take a moment again. Thanksgiving is a time in which we reflect upon the interconnectedness of beings. You know, yesterday we had our kids' Sangha, our Dharma school. And as part of our Dharma school on Zoom, I asked all the kids to bring a picture of their grandparents and to tell us something, share with us something about their grandparents. And it was surprising because one of the Dharma school kids showed a picture of his grandfather, and he said he was actually the mayor of Yellowknife at one point. Or yeah, up in Yukon. So anyways, he said his grandfather was a mayor of the city. So, you know, you learn about all these different things. But again, Thanksgiving is a time in which we reflect, and we are expressing our appreciation to the interconnectedness of life. So again, thank you all for joining us, and thank you for coming out today for the service in person. And we'll close this morning service with the recitation of the Nanbusu. So if you could please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. And let me just stop the recording.